Yes, it's happening, and yes, we're going to talk about it. The Nintendo Switch 2 is on the rise, and it is very apparent. Today, we're going to be discussing things about the Switch 2 that have yet to be confirmed, but are still in the realm of possibilities for this console. Now, I don't want to add to the whole leak this, rumor that, but there are some things I want to address. The first one being is there is word being spread that a lot of the larger first-party Nintendo games are not being produced as much. Multiple articles source that hit games such as Mario Odyssey, Metroid Dread, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe are nearing the end of their stock in retail stores, along with a list of a few others. Now, the only reason for this sellout is to make more room for new and upcoming games for the Switch 2. Or is it? There's a speculation proposed by Nintendo that these games could be coming back to the Switch 2 with updated cover art. Now pause. The Switch 2 is rumored to have backwards compatibility, and even though we don't have confirmation on this, it's still logical to assume that it would, given Nintendo's track record. Almost every console since 2006 could play games from the generation before it. Unpause. So if the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility, then why re-release these games just for better box art? Well, first of all, Nintendo will always try and resell you the same game. But then again, that usually comes with updated graphics and DLC, and either way, it's a Nintendo game, so it's money well spent. That aside, it also gives people who didn't own an original Switch a chance to play these games. But that's not the only reason. Nintendo might come through and rewire these games with better graphics and faster loading times. It would still be the same game, but just optimized for the Switch 2. An add-on to Nintendo's tweet says they could also relabel these games with what's called a stock keeping unit, which is how they keep track of sales. This would differentiate sales between a Switch copy of the game and a Switch 2 copy of the same game. Switching gears slightly to the actual hardware side of things, there's a piece of unconfirmed evidence that at the Gamescom 2023 event, Nintendo supposedly demonstrated the powers and capabilities of their next-gen console to other developers in complete private. This info originates from Eurogamer, who also says they showcased a version of Breath of the Wild that ran at 60 FPS with insane loading times. But then again, Nintendo refuted these accusations. At this point, there's no saying who to trust or what information is factual or not. A lot of this I, alongside many others, would like to believe. Speaking of the Switch running at 60 FPS, let's take a look at more information that may or may not be true. There's been 2 instances of huge leaked specs for this next console. The first of which is much more disappointing and comes from a Taiwanese economic forum. Upon translation, it says it'll have 8 GB of RAM, 64 GB of storage, 120Hz display, and I don't know all that much about RAM, but according to everyone else, 8 gigs is not that much. In fact, it's only half the RAM that's inside the newer generation of PlayStation and Xbox consoles. As for the storage space, it's also disappointing. Even my phone has double that of which this article claims it will have. Knowing Nintendo, they like to go above and beyond, which brings us to our next, more believable, list of leaked specs. This one comes from a well-credited Nintendo insider from Brazil, who says on the website a minimum of 256 GB of storage, anywhere from 12 to 16 gigs of RAM, and a 60Hz refresh rate. This thing is even believed to be more powerful than a Steam Deck. So this absolute beast of a machine, if all the leaks are correct, will be able to run much more than something like Tears of the Kingdom, which mind you is already insanely impressive on its own. A video posted by Digital Foundry on YouTube takes a graphics card that closely resembles what the Switch 2 will use and tweaks it to match the rumored specs of this next console. And I gotta say, the results aren't bad. It was running games like Cyberpunk and a bunch of others I've never heard of, but it looked pretty good. If this is what the next console will have, it will sell out like hotcakes, and paired with Nintendo's genius levels of optimization, we could be getting games that are as visually impressive as some of the new gen consoles. I would love to see games like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Red Dead Redemption 2, and even Grand Theft Auto 5 running on a Nintendo console. It's also mentioned that the Switch 2 will have a 1080p display screen, which I don't think needs to be leaked in order for us to believe. I'm just hoping deep down that all this information isn't just giving us a false hope, but we will never truly know until Nintendo decides to release this thing. On that note, when are they going to release the Switch 2? As of March of this year, the Switch will be 7 years old. 7? Lately, Nintendo has been releasing a console every 5 to 6 years, and the Nintendo Switch is pushing those numbers. And with all these leaks and rumors, it's obvious that the Switch 2 exists to some degree. It's the only thing Nintendo hasn't denied yet. So, when are we getting a new console, Nintendo? Some people suspect that it'll drop sometime this spring, just like the original Switch did. Personally, I hope it does because I'm impatient. However, just recently, a little company called GameShark might have just sold Nintendo's secret release day, or rather, release month. GameShark was a company that made cartridges with cheat codes on them that you could plug into your video game console to, well, cheat. Then I guess they recently decided to rebrand themselves as AI Shark, which will become official later this year, which they said, and I quote, "The official launch is planned to coincide with the Nintendo Switch 2 in September 2024. Again, we don't know who or what to trust, but shortly after, we got a cover-up tweet from a journalist that says, "An AI Shark spokesperson tells me they're just guessing about the next Nintendo console's release date." Do with that information what you will. I mean, the comments basically sum up my suspicions with the whole thing. We've got people saying, basically, why would Nintendo share this information with GameShark of all companies? And then others that convincingly suggest it genuinely sounded like an accidental slip of words. But just remember, grain of salt. Next up, the cost. Everyone claims it'll be $400. And that's a pretty solid take. The original Switch was $300, the Switch OLED was $360, and with inflation and everything, I could easily see it being at least $400, if not $450. On the topic of pricing, we might also see the price of games rise from $60 to a whopping $70. We already saw it with Tears of the Kingdom, but to be fair, that game was kinda worth $70. I never minded paying $60 for something like Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart, but if $70 is going to be the norm going forward, then these games have better be the best quality I've ever seen. And not just with the graphics and the visuals, but the details, how the game looks, how the game plays, the storyline, how in-depth it is, something that'll make me want to screen capture every second of the game. And it sounds like that might be the case with, you guessed it, more rumors we don't know if we can trust. According to Zippo, which yes, I'm aware, has lost the trust of many from inaccurate predictions, but according to his blog post, has information on what the next Mario Kart installment has to offer. He claims it is one of, if not the largest budget games Nintendo has ever made, and is set to shock the crowd with its release in 2025. Now, considering the Switch 2 is supposed to be benchmarked somewhere around the performance of the PS4, I doubt that this next Mario Kart game will be letting us down. The leak also says it'll be called Mario Kart X instead of Mario Kart 9. Do I believe this? Well, I mean, Apple skipped over the iPhone 9 and went straight to X. I could see Nintendo doing the same. Plus, we technically did get a new Mario Kart game, but I don't really consider this to be a proper Mario Kart installment. Or this. On the topic of Mario, in the same blog post, it's loosely thrown in that the next 3D Mario game will look even better than this supposed Mario Kart X. In a different post released on January 10th, it says the next 3D Mario will be 4 times larger than what Mario Odyssey was. Now let's take a step back and look at this logically. Sure, Zippo's track record has upset many with false leaks, but this is actually not a bad prediction. Mario Odyssey is only 5.7 gigabytes, which is roughly 1/3 of what Tears of the Kingdom is with just over 16 gigs. And assuming the Switch 2 will have the horsepower everyone says it will, it should have no trouble running a game that's over 20 gigabytes. Now I have more theories and predictions of upcoming games, as well as hopes for the physical aspects of the Switch 2. But for now, this is all the information we do know, and I'll put my hopes and visions for the Switch 2 in a different video where I can fully flesh out those ideas. If you made it this far into the video, comment your thoughts on this information, and if you think Nintendo will actually deliver. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.